All right. Well, welcome everyone. So stoked to be here. Not only just getting to hang out with some cool individuals, I get to meet not in person, but virtually meet somebody that I've definitely got to meet online. Super interesting person, and on this great platform. You know, the Launchpad is a space and a place that I get to share my unique voice and perception, and it's a community that really accepts me for who I am, and that's been something that's been really huge. And being able to come on and talk about people dealing with the elements outside of the tattoo needle to skin, but actually from the supplies to the traditions to the pigments and such and regulations. Like, it's so refreshing to be able to do this. And Rob, it's really cool to have you here. I do appreciate you taking the time, as we were chatting about right before you got in here. We know you've got many irons in the fire, and for you to carve out some time to share with us a little bit about yourself really means a lot. And like I said, this platform is built for people to connect that really care about what other practitioners are doing in their industry. And I like a human being, like to hear a story. And I usually like to start off by wielding and creating a story. And the story is all about you today, sir. And so I'd love to kind of get your origin story. Like, where'd you start out? Where are you from? Apparently you're not from a beach. I was mistaken. I thought you were from some sort of tropical island, but apparently that's not it. But I'd love to learn where you're from. And I know you're dabbled in the tattoo arts and have a whole story to give to us.
Yeah, man. I'm just from a small town here in Indiana. I grew up in a place called Elkhart that's pretty close to South Bend, Indiana, which most people haven't heard of when I talk to them, but I'm sure most people have heard of Notre Dame College. So I'm about 20 minutes outside the campus of Notre Dame. So about hour and a half west of Chicago, and about 2 hours north of Indianapolis. So kind of put it into perspective, I'm right up in the northern tip of Indiana, right on the Michigan border. Been here my whole life. And I've been in the tattoo industry in one form or another since 1994. In and out of tattooing here and there throughout my career. And I've always been an artist. I mean, I've always dabbled in different types of art. I've just ventured down different paths throughout my life. I was into commercial art for a long time. And then I didn't really want to do that just because of the restrictive nature, and the creative process. It's kind of like tattooing, I guess, when I look at it in retrospect. I got out of commercial art because I didn't like when I made a design, and then I go to a client and they'd pick it apart and tell me things they didn't like about it. And that's the whole reason why I wanted to get out of that. But you pretty much deal with the same stuff in tattooing with clients.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a catch-22, I guess. I found more enjoyment in tattooing, I guess, and a little bit more freedom than I had in commercial art. And obviously the ability to work for myself was always a big positive. So kind of that. And then I've done, I've gone through periods where I've worked part-time in tattooing, and I've had other jobs, when tattooing wasn't paying the bills or whatever. But tattooing has always been a big part of my life for the last 30 years. I think I told you when we talked last week that I think next year will be my 30th year officially. So been a long time. It's been a long time. I've been doing Electrum for almost half of that, about 15 years now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then the supply since 2015, and then we started Electrum Inc. in 2021, officially launched it.
Still fairly new, yeah. That's awesome. So, I think when we were kind of delving into the history a little bit, you were getting into trying to improve products and such. In the tattoo realm, you were working on the Electrum Premium Stencil Primer. Was that kind of like the first thing that kind of got you into the supply realm and world?
Yeah. So I developed that product basically just out of personal necessity. So I was using other stencil products that were on the market, but always whenever I got into sessions that were like in excess of 6 hours where I needed a stencil to hold up. The products that were out there just weren't really holding up. So it was pretty frustrating as an artist to have to bloodline things or, just lose lines altogether and then try to freehand stuff off of a reference photo. That was just pretty stressful part of my job. So I thought there had to be a way to improve what was out there. I mean, the things that were out there worked pretty good, but they just weren't quite good enough for me. So I developed Electrum just really to get myself own job easier. And then I had a friend out in Oregon named Chris Rohaley, Chris 51, which some people know, a lot of people don't know, but he used to have an ink company, several years ago called Formula 51. And I used that ink years ago. And he was a pretty good friend of mine at the time. And I thought my product was pretty good. So I actually just sent it out to him just to get some feedback. And he's like, dude, this stuff's really good. You should do something with this. And he just kind of encouraged me to take it to the next level and kind of helped me, the product, I guess, through the marketing aspect of it, and just hooked me up with a couple distributors. And the main one was Killer Ink over in Europe, and really did a lot to help me market that product over in Europe. And it really just kind of took off over there. And so for about the first 2 years, we just really focused on building that product in Europe. I started traveling over there and doing some conventions in Europe and Liverpool and London, and I had a lot of fun over there with those guys, and I met a lot of really cool artists over there. Everybody just loved the product. The feedback was just always really good, and the momentum just kept growing. And so, after that, the first primer was a gel, and then we got in. A lot of people wanted a lotion-based product because they were more used to stencil stuff or things like that. So then we developed a second version, which was a lotion version, just to accommodate those requests. And then the product was so good that people couldn't get the stencil off, so we had to go back and develop a remover to get the product off. And that's actually one of our most popular products today. People just love that product. So really just everything's been built off the momentum of that initial product, and then I really just found a real passion in product development and just really just analyzing things and figuring out how to make them work better. And really, that's my life passion now. I had quit active tattooing in 2015. So it's been a while since I've tattooed as a full-time job. And I don't really have time to do it anymore. Sometimes I miss it, but I feel like I'm doing better things to service the industry now, and my time's being utilized in good ways. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at today.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, when we talk about doing tattoos, it's, I always like to think of doing tattoos as a gift that we get, like the tattoo industry allows us to create artwork to supply, a means for our family. And it's always to do something for the industry is a way of giving back and being able to provide better products for us. Improving products is obviously, it's huge. I mean, that is another one of those giving back to the industry. Just like, Russ and Tattoo Smart. And, I know you created the primer and the remover. And I know we'll talk about inks here in a second, but what other products have you created or improved in the industry? Because I'm definitely interested.
So we collaborated with Steve Butcher, and we did an aftercare called Mamba Glide with him. I still think it's one of the best ones out there, though I don't really compare it to too much stuff anymore. I'm not even sure there's so many aftercare products out there now, and seems like there's 5 new ones popping up every day at this point. But Mamba Glide was really good just because we were the first people to really discover an ingredient called sea buckthorn, which is like a really complex omega profile. And if you know anything about omega acids, they're super beneficial in rejuvenation of skin and healing properties. So we discovered that ingredient, and we put it in Mamba Glide, and it just made that product really magic. And then there's some other science behind it. I work really close with a couple chemists, and they help me a lot with not just discovering ingredients, but figuring out other ingredients that you can put with certain ingredients to really compound the benefits of specific ingredients. So that's been really beneficial. So Mamba Glide was really good for that. we've got 3 numbing products now that was a labor intensive process. We had to register those with the FDA. Actually last year got my company registered with the FDA as an authorized drug distributor. So legally I can actually sell any kind of over the counter drugs through my company if I wanted to. But I did that just so that I could get my numbing products in places like Walgreens and CVS and, big shelf stores. So haven't done that yet, but that's on the radar. And that's one of the things we're working on trying to do now. Obviously the inks, I developed stencil paper just so I could put some competition out there for Spirit, which I don't want to get into the weeds with that too much, but
Roger.
I just have a real problem with companies that aren't part of the tattoo industry monopolizing the tattoo industry, so I like artists to have an alternate solution. So we did the stencil paper for that. We're working on some new SKUs for that. So 14-inch options. We're doing the 100-foot rolls, that kind of stuff. Cartridges, cool. Obviously everybody's got cartridges. I developed cartridges. I'm doing a second line of cartridges now. Those are in the process. We've done skin, pens, markers, just a lot of different things, man. I think I've got 20 products under my belt now, something like that.
So do you what's your process like? Do you have a laboratory that you find yourself at 3:00 in the morning, the beakers and stuff?
It's all up here, really. It's just my gears are always spinning, dude. It's kind of it's almost an illness to some degree. It's pretty stressful, really. It's just I don't know. I just have a million ideas all the time, man, and I just pick the ones that I think are good, and then I bounce them off of people, and that's kind of how it goes.
That's cool. That's we all have tons of great ideas, but you're actually putting the rubber to the road, right? You're putting those products into, bring them to life and to fruition. And then not only bring them to fruition, actually doing something with them, because so many people can make great products, but then they do nothing, right? You really took that extra step. So that's cool. I love hearing like I said, that origin of, coming from the industry. And yeah, tattooing has a bit of freedom, a little bit of a wildness to it, but there's going to be restrictions, and being able to provide, to see a need and fill that need and fix something and make it better, and then improve it for the rest of the industry. That's so much more rewarding. And I thank you for, unfortunately stressing yourself out and thinking of these products. But I'd love to dig into a little bit of the ink products and just kind of, what brought that about, and maybe a little bit more about that, and we can kind of venture into some other topics.
So the ink conversation could turn into a long one, so I'll try to keep it okay. Short. But I kind of wanted to dip into inks for several years. I just really never did it, just because of relationships that I had with other owners of ink companies, and I just wanted to just kind of stay in my own lane and be respectful of them. And then, but I always thought, it was another product that I could really kind of improve on. I knew the things that I didn't necessarily like with the inks that I used. I didn't like that they dried out in the caps when I was using them, or that I had to put witch hazel in them to keep them wet all the time, or just simple things like that. I didn't like the way they saturated. I didn't like, like blues in particular. That's one thing with my inks is I always thought blues were really hard to work with. They were hard to, when you're working them in the skin, it's really hard to see if it's really saturated well sometimes, especially if you have a client that bleeds really heavily. Mm-hmm. So I always thought, man, there has to be ways to do this stuff better, so it was always an idea, but like I said, I just never really wanted to dip into it. And then I met another guy who was my partner at the time, named Christian Moore. Christian used to work for World Famous. He's worked for Tat Soul. He's worked for Eternal. And he was kind of freelancing at the time. And I saw him at the Detroit show, a few years back. And, he was on my podcast actually. And after the podcast, we started talking about inks, and he goes, have you ever thought about doing inks? And I'm like, yeah, it's been kind of something I've just kind of thought about, but never really took serious or really seriously. And he's like, well, we should do it. we should partner up and do something with it. And so we just kind of started having conversations and kicking things back and forth. And that's just kind of what the catalyst to Electrum Ink was. And then manufacture my inks. They are manufactured by another ink manufacturer in the industry. I'm very transparent about what I do. I won't tell people who make my ink, but it is another very well-known brand, and my inks are made to my formulation. So they're not just white labeled another brand. They are our formulas that we worked with the chemist on, and we developed those. And I actually probably approached every single ink manufacturer in the industry about manufacturing inks for us. So we ended up where we ended up, and I feel like we got a good product out of the mix, and things have been going well. And yeah, we just had a big conversation today around regulations and MOCRA, and just making sure that we're all in line and our ducks are in a row, because it's been a pretty stressful few months here recently, especially since this MOCRA stuff has really kind of come to the forefront and really forced us. But we are not even selling inks in Europe just because of the REACH regulations, and I'm not really happy with the REACH inks that are out there right now. I just don't think the quality's where they need to be. And we can't produce inks that I feel like are up to our standards of quality that are REACH compliant. So until we can, I'm just not going to put them out there. And if I was faced with the same thing here in the United States, with the FDA regulations that are coming down, I don't know how stringent they're going to get with tattoo inks here, but if it ever comes to the point where it affects the quality of the product, then we'll just stop making it. That's quality is the most important thing to me over everything. So
yeah, I respect that. Thank you. And it has been a stressful few months for a lot of those in the know. And I kind of kicked the interview off with being able to talk about things that are passion, certain things that I'm personally passionate about, and regulation and being aware of how that affects us isn't the most known topic. But if it affects you, it affects you. And now what we're talking about is something that's going to affect us all, because it trickles down, right? We talked about, are they going to become strict and stringent? Regardless, I could say right out the gate, there's going to obviously be increased compliance requirements, which are going to increase costs for the manufacturers. Right? The costs are going to go up, and that's going to inadvertently affect the practitioner, and then that's going to be translated to the clients. What does that look like? We don't know yet, but we can kind of dig into that a little bit more in a second. But the true question is, are they going to let us be a part of that conversation? And I think that's what kind of stemmed your interest in becoming involved with the APT, the Alliance of Professional Tattooists. We know that they're our industry's trade organization that's been around forever. The government recognizes us, and so they've been able. The APT has been able to find itself at the seat of some tables that make a difference, like the AFTO Body Art Committee. And would you like to talk to, you've been around the industry for a while, right? You've been around since the APT came about, right? So at this point in the career, with what you're doing in the industry, you want to maybe talk to why you became an APT member, and maybe like what we can do as a unified front moving forward?
Yeah, so I feel like at this point in my own personal career, in my life, I feel like I have a lot of people that respect me, that look up to me in the industry. I have a lot of relationships, and I have a lot of responsibility, I feel like now, as owner of a company in the industry, and one that's globally recognized, and I'm the face of that industry. And I feel like it's very important for me to be vocal and, practicing what I preach to the people that I talk to, So I've always been a supporter of regulations. I've always been a supporter of safe practices. I've just always been one of those people. And I just feel like I need to be aligned with people that are of the same cloth, and I need to be sending out the right messages to tattoo artists all over the world, when I'm through my products, through my marketing, through my Instagram channels, through my Facebook, through my whatever. whatever I'm doing, I need to have relationships and alliances with people that are of the same mindset, and I need to encourage the rest of the industry and the rest of the practitioners in the industry to follow the same footsteps. Tattooing's been a really renegade industry, I guess, for a really long time. And I don't just mean with product manufacturing. I mean, for example, the town that I'm in, like Elkhart, where I grew up, are no tattoo regulations, literally. Like the guy that mows my lawn could go open up a tattoo shop tomorrow. Nobody's going to come in there and check to see if he's got bloodborne pathogen training, or nobody's going to come in there to see if his inks are expired or if he's using things safely. Nobody even cares if he's wearing gloves. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm sure there are a ton of people out there tattooing under those kind of circumstances. You know what I mean? So I've always can't tell you, I walked into a shop one time and I saw ink all over the floor underneath the tattoo station. And I was just like, man, that's really bad look for us, And I'm like, we got to change that. And I've just always been that way. So I think the APT is great just because they are leader in the trade organization in our industry. And I think I didn't even realize that they were out there full time. I just recently learned about the APT within the last 5 or 6 years, So I didn't even know they existed. So I'm led to believe that there's probably a ton of tattoo artists that don't even know the APT's out there. So, So now same thing with other organizations that are out there. I think tattoo artists just in general don't even have a clue as to what resources are available to them, So I applaud the people like you and, Russ Abbott and other people out there that are using platforms like podcasts and Tattoo Smart and whatever other platforms that are out there to just kind of help unite the industry and really just make one collective voice for everyone. I think it's important as practitioners that we educate ourselves, that we, everybody wants to be taken serious and everybody wants to make big bucks, but every other industry that I look at, if you want to be a lawyer, you got to go to school for 8 years. If you want to be a doctor, you got to go to school for 8 to 12 years. You got to have degrees. You got laws that you have to follow. You have boards that you have to answer to. I mean, it's just kind of a common thing in a career, right? So really my mindset's always been if tattooists want to be taken serious and we want to be a serious industry, then we have to get behind these kinds of things and we have to embrace these kind of things and we have to help develop these kind of things. It's not a bad thing in my perspective. It's all good things. So I'm hoping that I can use my own platforms like you're using your platforms to help create that unity and keep that momentum going.
I appreciate you saying that, and it is really a altruistic endeavor, right? To work to develop. You said help develop those types of things. APT has been around for 36 years now, and when they originally came about, it was just do exactly what you're saying, right? They would go out into the industry and they would see that tattooers were tattooing without gloves and practicing in a way that got the government paying attention to them, right? And wanted to start enforcing some regulations upon them. Now, I agree that there's a level of standards we should follow, and I know that we cannot avoid the fact that we're a practice that sticks products or sticks inks under the dermal layer with sharp utensils, right? It's going to be a regulated industry, but it's also really important that we're involved with it, just like you were saying, and for us to take part in it. And that's what the APT initially did, was stepped in as that organization that was going to help through speaking to tattooers, what is really required to not hurt their clients to have a long-term career. And you mentioned not understanding or not even hearing about the APT until just a few years ago. The APT at its height was about 1,500 members, but that was back in the 90s. And from there, technology changed, and it's really difficult to keep on top of all these new platforms and such. And so, being a tattoo artist, you're busy as hell. You mentioned there's so many tattooers that probably don't know about some of these offerings because we're busy slinging ink. So it's really important for people like yourself, of course, to kind of step up and utilize your spheres of influence to kind of inspire people to take a look at these organizations, because I do believe regulation is important, but I also believe in self-regulation. I do believe that we should really take the reins of our regulation. And that doesn't mean move away from the government and try to keep them out of the conversation. That's not going to happen. Like I said, we're injecting products in people's skin. What it is now is just being at the table and having a unified front when we're creating these rules and regulations, right? Having our say and being able to insert our experiences and experience that's going to, provide us the wiggle room so that way we can grow the way we need to grow in a professional manner, because just like you're saying with lawyers and doctors, there's schools and there's these heavy requirements on them, and we can be a part of that, but the way that makes sense for us, right? We can look at the two differences, with the traditional tattoo apprenticeships and it being, very difficult to find a consistent one, right? A lot of the older traditions have kind of vanished, and now through my experience in New Mexico, there's so many intermittent people taking on these responsibilities, teaching a plethora of things. And then on the other hand, you got something in Oregon where they have these schools, right, where they're just basically pumping people out. It's my understanding there's 4,500 licensed tattoo artists in that state, right? And so we're at this point now where we need to kind of come together and find that middle ground and find what makes sense for the industry, and being a part of, like you were saying, an organization that's on the forefront, an organization that's about the industry's interests at heart is huge. It's us coming together and sharing our voices and our perspective and our experiences to help work towards this self-regulation. Because if we just step back and do nothing about it, we can see what happened in Oregon. That was not the tattoo artist's interest. That was not the tattoo artist's voice. That was something that was imposed on them. And with the current federal law that's currently now in place, there are wheels in motion that we need to be aware of. I think we were talking a little bit about the upcoming FDA presentation about good manufacturing processes on the 1st. You're saying you're going to be present at that, Rob?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yep, for sure.
I say that's going to be an important one because that's where, it's going to be an important one. It's also be a long one. I think it starts at 10 a.m. Eastern and goes to 4 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I'm going to sit for the whole thing. I'm blocking out that whole day because it is important.
Yeah, I think it is important. It's going to be important, I think, for those of us watching it, to share that we're watching it and to, obviously push people to check it out, to hear what's being talked about, because for those who maybe aren't aware, the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act affects all cosmetics. It's just tattooing is now grouped under that category. So we're going to be hearing from L'Oreal and Revlon and all those other industries. And it's going to be, I think, very interesting to find out how they're navigating these particular hurdles and how it's going to affect them and what they're going to say, right? Because if we keep saying disorganized and we keep saying staying disbanded and not coming together under a unified trade organization, not coming together and unifying our voices, these big entities with lots of persuasion and the means, they could look at our organization as something that they could potentially prey upon. And that could be speculation. There could be a lot of truth there, so I think it's going to be important for us to, if you see something that I don't, Rob, let's just call it out online, right? That way people know what's up.
Yeah, I don't really know what to expect, but I'm not afraid of the government. You know what I mean? I don't think they're out to shut anybody down. I don't think they're out to restrict us. I think they just want to make sure we're doing stuff safely. And they, it's just like Europe. I mean, dude, the regulations in Europe are insane when it comes to cosmetics. Like, and I shouldn't even use the word insane. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean insane and like the things that are not allowed in cosmetic products over there. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, they just did that with inks where they banned the two pigments over there, but if you even take that away, like they can't have anything that has any kind of metals. Like you can't have any oxides in cosmetic products over there. You can't have any aluminum. They are very, very conscious of what goes in a human being's body in Europe, as they should be. I mean, that's for the safety and protection of all of us, like hell, we all get tattoos. I mean, you've got tattoos all over you. I've got them all over me. Forrest has a ton of tattoos all over him. Probably have every kind of ink in our body that's out there. Probably have had every kind of aftercare applied to our bodies that's out there at one point in time or another. So we are subjecting ourselves to that as consumers, the same as we are subjecting other people to it as manufacturers of products. So not only do I want to make sure that the products I'm putting out there are safe, I want to make sure that the products people are using on me are safe too. No, I don't want to die prematurely because somebody didn't do due diligence and put some crap in a product that wasn't safe to be put in a product. So I'm not afraid of regulations. I think it's necessary. I think it's been needed for a while. I think it will benefit our industry a lot more than it will hurt it. But I also agree with you. We definitely need to be present and we need to be aware and we need to have a voice and we need to make sure that these regulations are designed in a way that are not crippling our careers or that are not putting people out of business, so that's important too, just as important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so many of the products that you're saying are restricted, it potentially isn't as harmful as they're making it out to be. So then they're restricting it, making it a poorly done product. And some of the issues we're seeing over in Europe because of these products being kind of subpar, especially ink, right? Because that's really what they focus on in Europe, is the inks over there they don't want to use. So the majority of tattoo artists are still using the products that the inks that we're utilizing in the States and other places. So now they're not only they're having to be false, right? It's creating criminal activity. And I'm not saying like the European governments run around, locking people up. But it's creating that, right? This regulation is now making people practice illegally. And I know that there was a section online talking about reach restrictions, punishments, basically, where there's like a 3-year in prison, 50,000 euro fine, and again, they're not heavily enforcing it now, but they could potentially utilize it as, to make an example if they need to be. And I agree, they don't want to. Right? I don't think this was intentional. It's just something that happened. And because they can't access the products and pigments they really want, they have to find, they're accessing the stuff that they're not supposed to use, but it's becoming harder for them to get it. So what happens if they can't find it the way they were used to getting it and they have to go through another vendor, right? They go online or Amazon where there's no sort of restrictions or regulations. Then there's a concern that they could be potentially utilizing, counterfeit products that are labeled a certain way, then have ingredients that could even be more dangerous. So I agree, Rob. It's like, is that combination of like, the government's not out to get us per se. They'll just come at us with a hammer if we don't tell them not to, right? They don't know what tool to use at us, right? They may come at us with a Phillips when we need a flathead, or a hammer when we just need, just some mild pressure. And, we don't want to be left with products that we don't want to use. We don't want to have products that no longer our clients want, right? We don't want to do a tattoo on them and it just fades completely, or doesn't work the way we want to, overworking skin or whatever. So yeah, we're definitely in a place where a lot more people need to have this conversation. A lot more people need to be involved with this conversation. And I think that means that, we need to continue to share with as many people as possible and get as many people as possible to come have this conversation. And I've obviously rallied behind the APT, because of their track record. Even though we may not have heard about them much over the past couple decades, they've been there. Majority of these tattoo artists are are still there from the beginning, right? You know, like Sean Anderson or Pat Sinatra, you know, still tattooing, still out there, you know, fighting for us. You know, tattooers working for tattooers for nothing more than the wanting to give back to the industry. And, you know, with the way that the industry has changed, and you may be able to speak this too, you know, with now, like I say, Oregon, with all of the tattoo artists basically you know, going through a school, spending 10 grand, going through this 3 months training, and now they're released into the wild. There's been so many like private studios opening, and that's kind of a big thing in the industry altogether, but especially in areas like that. So now you've got these young tattoo artists that are just using every product. You know, they don't have any mentors or elders to kind of share with them the type of products that they need. I mean, like what kind of product education are you able to offer some of these folks? I'm sure you're really big into that, right, Rob? Making sure that they're aware of what they're using. And
yeah, you know, so like I'm very, like I said earlier, you know, I always try to be really transparent. You know, anybody can ask me any questions they want. You know, we have if you go on our Electrum Ink site, for example, you can pull up any color on that site and you can download the SDS for any color that we produce. It's right there on the product page. You know, we do the same thing with all the other products that we manufacture. You can go to Electrum Supply. If you go on the stencil primer pages, you know, you have access to all of our safety data sheets right there. Anybody can access them, download them right now. So we, you know, as far as surface level stuff, I mean, that's about as far as you can go. If other people want to, you know, people message us and ask us questions, you know, we have a whole plethora of information that's out there in regards to our products, you know. But we go through a very thorough process of testing things, you know what I mean? So like Dermore, you know, we did our own version of like Sanoderm type of bandage, so Dermore. But the difference with that was I wanted to create a product that was hypoallergenic because people were having so many problems with latex allergies to those bandages, you know. So I wanted to do a non-latex version and a hypoallergenic version that people weren't going to have reactions to. And so we did that. Not to say that there aren't some people out there that won't have a reaction to it, because there have been a couple. But we have pretty much, I feel like for the most part, curtailed that problem, you know. So we're always trying to be proactive and put safer products out there, better products. And a big part of better is safety and quality, you know, using quality ingredients. I don't care if I have to pay more to manufacture something with better ingredients or better components, you know. It means more to me to have a quality product out there and sell it at less of a margin to myself, knowing that it's better for the end user. You know what I mean? It's just that's just the way I look at things. You know, I think a lot of people are more driven by profit, and, you know, how can I cut costs in my manufacturing? How can I cut? Okay, I'm not going to use the most expensive tea tree oil. I'm going to go out here and use this Chinese version of tea tree oil that's not certified, that's like a lesser quality. And okay, I can do that, but if I do that, here's what could potentially happen to the end user if I cut that corner. You know, I don't like to do that, you know, I don't really have a healthy feeling for people that do that. So I think it's very important as a manufacturer to really educate yourself on what you're doing. I think there's a lot of people, you know, I get emails from China 5 times a day about products that they're developing over there. Hey, we can OEM this for you. We can OEM this for you. But I don't have any interest in that. It's not a product that I made. It's not something that I tested myself. There's too many people out there just doing that, you know, white labeling stuff that they have no idea what it is or what's in it or who manufactured it or where it's even manufactured. And I think that's the wrong way to go about things. I just think you gotta put safety first all the time and not just think about the bottom line.
Love it. No, I respect that. And like I was just kind of opening you up to that line of response just to showing that that's the caliber of people involved with a tradition, a solid trade organization like the APT, right? We do want to ensure the longevity of our industry, and that requires us to make sure that what we're doing is in align with that. And with there being so many products out there, I think you said there's I don't know 900 different types of aftercare stuff. It's important that we support each other, those who are willing to kind of step up and go above and beyond, because as I mentioned before, there's the potential that some of those bigger manufacturers that would be willing to cut corners, and I'm talking like, I'm not gonna put names, but like major industries that are potentially outside of the tattoo industry could want to come inside here and start banging out products for profit. And then again, it is something that does go into and on the body. We want to be at the forefront of that, being aware of what that looks like, and you being able to educate people on that so they can identify what a good product is versus a not, is huge. And self regulation is akin to self-education, right? It's so important that we as an industry educate each other on what we should be looking for and looking out for. I think when we first originally touched base on the body art regulation support system, I just love the vibe, the energy of like, hey, this is here. Let's step up. Let's do what we got to do. Let's not try to avoid it or run away from it, but let's face it head on. And I know that's what you're doing right now. You said you've had a kind of even a stressful week, and it's Tuesday. It's just getting rolling, sir. So I know you're stepping up and doing what you can to kind of prepare for all these unknowns, and want to make sure that whatever is being presented to you and the industry and the manufacturers, that a high quality, safe products is what you're going to continue to be able to supply, and in the but also in the respect of giving a good quality product, right? Not end up giving something that's subpar just to kind of fulfill some blanks and check some marks and such. So, what are at this current, part in your career, Rob, 30 years into the industry, you're quite successful in the supply realm. You've got, you said, like 20 custom products yourself, which is amazing. That like I said, we've all great ideas, but it's different to actually make them come to reality. And you've done that, and you even delved into the ink realm. And before we hopped on, Forrest was commenting on the positive response your pigments are getting, your inks are getting in the industry, which is also really great to hear. Now we got we got you on board with the Alliance Professional Tattooists. We're all coming together to start, navigating the upcoming regulations, these federal regulations that are going to do some interesting things. Like, what is your predictions? What are your future plans? What can we do to collaborate? What can we do with all of this in mind moving forward, Rob?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I think my plans are just to obviously keep going down the road I'm going. I feel like I wake up every day with the intention of doing good things in the tattoo space, and that's what I go out my front door every day with the intention of doing. I've been a part of this initiative now for obviously not with the APT. This has all been relatively new to me, but I was on board with the CTS, several years ago when that was trying to be formed. And then there was another committee that kind of started trying to form after the CTS kind of dissolved. Both of those initiatives I felt like weren't very well organized. I think the intentions were good. I just think it was very early on in things, and nobody really knew what direction to go with any of it. They were just, let's get all these manufacturers together in a room and just try to figure out how to protect ourselves, kind of a thing, but really no idea how to do that. I feel like I've been on the regulatory calls that Selena puts out every week. I've been on those religiously. I've had I've had Selena and Laurel really just kind of go out of their way, which was totally unprompted. You know, they just sidebar conversation with me and said, hey, we want to help you. We know you have all these products and you have a tremendous amount of weight on your shoulders, and we want to help you relieve some of that and let us take some of the load off and help you out. I can't even tell you how much that meant to me and how far that went with me, just people reaching out like that, because it's very uncommon. You know what I mean? Like it's very uncommon on this side of things. You know, it's like when I was in the CTS, it just felt very much agenda driven by a lot of different people, you know, and it wasn't a very unified front, you know, whereas I feel like this is, and I feel so much more refreshed by this, you know, like I was really worried about things, you know, a year ago. You know, I was really worried about the future of my business. You know, what am I going to do tomorrow if all of a sudden I can't manufacture products anymore and they just take the bread off my table? You know, what am I going to do? Am I just going to go back to tattooing full time? Am I, you know, what's next for me? I really don't want to do anything else. Like, I was really bummed, you know, like they're taking my life passion away from me. And that was a scary thought, you know? So now, after talking to people in the Alliance, talking to people in AFDO, I feel really rejuvenated and refreshed and a lot less stressed out. I feel like there are so many people willing to pitch in and help. And that's just been a really refreshing thing. So today, you know, I had a good meeting with my ink manufacturer, and who, by the way, are also business partners of mine, you know? So like, we had a really good meeting today around regulations. You know, we know that we're 85% compliant. We just have some documentation and some paperwork that we need to make sure that we have in order. I feel really good about that. You know, I thought maybe in 6 months I was going to have to shut down the ink company, you know, like I really just didn't know what direction things were going to go. So I am very grateful for this initiative and the momentum behind it. And I'm all about collaboration, you know, just like we talked over the weekend. You and I had a little short conversation, and yeah, I'm very big about collaboration and just working with other people in the space to help the movement keep going in the right direction. You know, I just had a conversation with Selena today, and you know, I've had a long-standing relationship with the editor of Skin and Ink magazine. I write an article in that magazine in every issue. It's called The Business of Tattooing, and I have free reign to write about whatever I want to write about in every issue. So yeah, I think in the next issue, which is due in 2 weeks, I have to get my article over in 2 weeks, but I really want to write a piece about regulations and just sending a message out to the artists in the industry about how they can get involved. And I would love to pick your brain on that. I've said the same thing to Selena on the call, you know, like any ideas that she has, because I also want to be very careful about the things I say. You know, I don't want the wrong people. I shouldn't say the wrong people. I don't want specific people picking up an issue of Skin and Ink magazine and reading something that I wrote and being like, causing that to be more of a magnification on us. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that I say the right things and I deliver the right messages. But I want to be able to use all of my platforms to really push the agenda here, to really help unify artists. I feel like the guys that are my age are really just kind of fading out of the industry now. You know what I mean? Like, all the guys that I grew up with and all the guys that I'm friends with, most of them aren't really tattooing anymore, or they're just kind of creeping into retirement now. And we have this whole new tattoo artists coming in now. You know, there's so many young artists coming into the industry every single day. Now my mind is set on like, how do I get the message to this younger generation of tattoo artists coming into the space now? You know, and how do I, the, you know, almost 50-year-old artist, how do I relate to a 20-year-old tattoo artist that's coming into the industry now? And how do I get them to take what I'm saying seriously? And the way to do that is you have to befriend them, and you have to make them feel like they're a part of something too. I think they're more than willing to embrace unity, more so now than probably tattoo artists were 30 years ago. You know, I can remember 20 years ago just trying to get the shops in my own town to come together and talk about pricing and what we were charging people so that we weren't like all undercutting each other. And that was like pulling teeth, man. Like you couldn't even get, you would have a conversation, so it'd be like, man, screw that guy down the street. I don't give it if he's doing business tomorrow or not, you know, I'm charged whatever I want to charge, you know? So I think it's a whole different mentality now. And I think different mentality in our advantage, really. I think the generation of artists coming in today are much more progressive thinkers. I think they are much more willing to embrace changes because they don't have all these preconceived things already in their head. You know, they don't have years of stereotypes built up under them, you know? So like, I think we're in a fortunate position, really, actually. So I'm all about, and so you tell me, man, what you need from me, you got it. Any of my resources, you got them. I'm all about it. You know, I just want to make sure that we're all able to keep putting bread on our table tomorrow and creating the artwork that we love to create and changing people's lives. You know, like I'm sure we've all seen it. You know, we've done tattoos and they have deep meaning to people, you know, and that's a very therapeutic thing for some people, you know. So I want to make sure that we protect that and we preserve that. You know, tattooing has been around a really, really, really long time, you know, so I'm sure it's going to be around for a long time to come. I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that it's going forward in the right direction in a way that protects us all for future generations.
Love it. Firm believer, the best way to lead is by example, Rob, and that's a great example. I couldn't agree more. I think the generation that's tattooing now is ready to unify because of just the change of the world, right? and human beings are social creatures, and because of the dispersion, we crave to be a part of something larger. And right now, there's something larger, right? There's a federal law that's been placed in front of us, and it can do some damage, or it could actually act as a catalyst to bring the tattoo industry together. And you know, for you being someone that's, you know, near 50, but in the industry for over 30 years, you know, or up to 30 years, sharing that you believe that this is the time, that's going to inspire that younger generation. And it's going to be you just stepping up and sharing those brochures, sharing the information, sharing the content online, and just making people more aware of it is really what's going to drive that home.
Forrest, thanks for organizing this, man. Great guy. Appreciate you guys, man.
Hell yeah. Great interview. Thanks, Rob.